Okay. So, what Professor Francis just mentioned. We try to bring something from the different perspective, from the area that some of you, maybe a lot of you here, may not be familiar with, and compared to the presentation of Kathleen and Professor Schofield, my presentation is just a little bit more local initiative. So we not bring you into um, um, the discussion, big discussion, uh, uh, dispute discussion between the member state, but our approach, we try to bring the thing into the local initiative, and our discussion will be in the way that we propose some activity that could be, member state or at least community can do action by themselves. So we buy some model, so community can practice. So a little bit about because some of you may not know about the MRC, so a little bit, give me one minute to introduce about the Mekong River Commission. So we are the Mekong River Commission Secretariat in Vientiane. So we represent 4 member states, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand. MRC is very unique compared to other intergovernment organizations. So MRC it is established by 1995 agreement. Is a legal binding agreement. Okay, so all of member states had the responsibility to work together to manage the Mekong. So we are not the conservation organization. We are just a sustainable organization. In this presentation, so I will bring the perspective of the fishery in the Mekong basins. What I mean for the fishery here is an inland fishery. Okay, so nothing associated with the marine fishery. So we had some transition between freshwater and marine, but more of my presentation is for inland fishery initiative in the Mekong. Okay. Now how did it work? Okay. All right. So why fishery important? So I know a lot of you here can say that because of the food. I remember that yesterday that Madam DG from the Thailand said because of we had serving fish on the table every day. Why it important? Because it's important because of it is not only for the inland fishery in the Mekong itself, can serving the security, livelihood, and food nutrition for millions of people within the lower Mekong Basin. So I don't know which the fishing community in the coastal, but in inland fishery, that it is very important. If you had a chance to go to Laos, you know that Laos is one of the least developed country, but you won't see a lot of people go hunger. Because people can rely on the fishery, rely on the natural resources. So they may be poor by on your standards, but they not hunger. Okay, they have everything they had a thing to eat by on the natural resources. Okay, and uh, all of that things is never recognized by some traditional statistic methodology or by the government statistic office. So we recognize that one of the things that the inland fishery often be ignored by government investment, by international recognition of how important it is. So at MRC, we helping the member state to do fish monitoring, and also we have the government, we come up with a statistic every 5 years, okay? So our assessment that recently in 2020, so annual finfish, okay? So finfish is in lower Mekong Basin, it's in 1.5 to 1.7 million tons annually. It's annually, okay? And also that OAA means other aquatic animals. It contributes further to about 500,000 tons per year. Okay, and it's an estimated decline of approximately 20% it compared to 2010. I will explain why. And especially, I remember yesterday I attended one of the group meeting. People are talking about the videos that the fish side. Is that happen everywhere, not only marine but also in the fishery. But it's the things. So it's the money values. So if you calculate all of the catch at the landing site, it value between 3.7 and 2.9 billion for the first sale values. If this one go through the value chain, go into the market, go into the restaurant, I think the value it go up to the 7 to 9 billion per year based on the market values. Because you're marine, but if you go to Mekong country, if you order, go to restaurant and order the Mekong fish, it's very expensive. It's not cheap. And it's OAA is estimated around that additional 1.5 billion. So a lot of money, but all of these things is never recognized in the government statistic system. Okay, so I will explain why, and I explain what is the advantage when the government don't see these values. Okay, so these values is based on sale and non-sale values. A lot of the family along the Mekong, they just go fishing and just for subsistence. Okay. Okay, so you know all of these things. The reason the fish decline, hydropower. You heard about the hydropower. You see this. The Mekong is originated from the Tibet, Cambodia, China, and go down to the South China Sea here in Vietnam. It's long at about, it's almost 5,000 kilometers. And from the section is under the Mekong River Commission between the Laos and China border. It go down here to the South China Sea. In Vietnam, it's about 2.3 to 2.5 thousand kilometers. And our population is about, in the basin, is about 65 million people, okay, as in the basin. So hydropower, and hydropower development, you know that, you heard it in the media, in mainstream media, hydropower is one of the main the problem in the fishery decline. And you heard about that unsustainable fishing is the same everywhere. Inland and marine, you talk about the unsustainable fishing. But in the inland, we had the land use change. A lot of wetland is converted into the rice field, and the owner change the land use pattern is making the different nutrition regime going to the river, and then changing the fish population and make it the fish decline. And also heard about that sand mining in the Mekong, because the people rely on the sand from the Mekong for the own infrastructure development. And number 5, the limited integrated river basin management policy, regulation, and management information. I try to highlight here. And I'm going to talk about the next slide, but I try to highlight here is information. It relates to two of my previous slides about on the value of the fishery. So all of the information is not clear to the government or to the decision maker, so they cannot make a good decision to support the fishery. So we identify one of the problem for the fishery decline in the region, and also you know that is climate change. We talk about climate change. So everyone talk about climate change is just one of the reason making fish decline. But during this presentation, I will argue that climate change is one of opportunity for funding for the fishery in the Mekong. Okay. Okay. Now question: are the public and government aware of the own causes of the fish decline? Probably yes. Yes. But why you don't do any action? Why don't you stop building the dam? Why don't stop illegal fishing? Why? So we ask ourselves why our government don't do anything. Okay? So because of all of the barriers that prevent the government or prevent the decision maker, prevent the people to do action. So we do analysis of what is the barrier of encourage the government to do something to protect the fishery. The first things, as I mentioned in my first slide, the significant unvalued the capture fishery. So if you are one of the government officer, you know that the government and also the private, they always go for the benefits. Okay, so they invest in something that they can bring in return. But the reason of the fishery is that the government and the people, the decision maker, they don't see the significant the value of the fishery. So that's why I said, oh, fishery is very small. The values you don't need. We need to prioritize something that can bring return to the state. So that is the reason. So we find out. So what is the main reason for that things? Okay. So we do analysis of the government statistic system for inland fishery. Okay. So all of the government, they just focus on commercial and full-time fishing activity, totally ignore the subsistence fishing, the people, the part-time fishing. In the Mekong, it's very traditional, and for the seasonal fishing, people go fishing in the flood season. So it's totally that a figure totally ignored by the traditional the government statistic system. So they ignore all the part-time subsistence fishing activity, and all of that things is go for the family subsistence, and it never go into the traditional statistic system. So the government, they don't know. So they think that the inland fishery is very low values. It is not compared to the marine because it go into the value chain, a lot of production. But thing here in inland fishery, the volume is lower, but it still exists. We need to recognize that things. So all of that things will lead to that unestimated total catch. Okay. And because of the fishery as small-scale activity and for family subsistence purposes, we don't blame the government, but we see that it's very difficult to do the statistic of all of the things. It's not easy things. And the catch is seasonal and in nature and localized and not community. The key thing is not in, if it's not community, it's not going to the value chain. It's difficult to visualize all of the value and the activity. Okay? Okay, that is the first thing. The second thing, why the government don't take action, because they fail to acknowledge the role of inland fishery for food security. Okay? So all of like, for example, like in Laos, all of the people go fishing for subsistence. They never go hunger because the Mekong has a safety net for them. When they need to go get some food, they go to river, grab the fish. And all that thing is never recognized by the government, caught in that official number. Also, I talked to the colleague from Malaysia yesterday, is that so Malaysia want to convert now 60% of marine to 40% aquaculture, and now they want to convert the 60% aquaculture and 40% marine. So we try to argue that aquaculture cannot compensate for a lot of fishery, because of these things. So aquaculture requires land, okay? Capture, the culture on the river also requires that the water you rise. You need to have a permission from the government, and also we had a big investment to build the case. Of course, high capital investment, and not all the fishermen can do. Okay, so and there's no clear. So say some people argue that all the fishermen in the Mekong, if the fish decline, you can convert them into the aquaculture worker, but there's no clear transition from full-time capture fishery to aquaculture, and also the aquaculture. Malaysia may be different, but in Mekong, all of aquaculture is mainly target for export. So that raising concern about the social inequality, because all the things that we produce for the export, that you had a problem with the fishery, okay. So consequently, the social inequities may be exacerbated by policies that seek to replace capture fishery by aquaculture, okay. And also aquaculture, you know that it can become the environment impacts. Okay, so last things, we argue that, okay, so we argue that you know that you from the fishery, you have the aquaculture and capture fishery in the same fishery department, okay. If the government prioritize, they will prioritize only investment for the aquaculture, okay. So we argue that so aquaculture and fisheries should not be compete for the same sort of funding. So should have to put it is a different way. It's as why all the money go to Department of Fishery and go into aquaculture for sure. It happened a long time already in its own fishery. Different people prefer to do the aquaculture than the capture of fishery. Okay, so all of that things. If you see what happened in Cup River, in between Myanmar and Thailand, okay. So now because the Cup River is polluted by the mining industry, so the people don't eat fish from the river. Okay, so the problem of the fishing is pollution now becomes the problem of the social problem in Thailand because of all the fishermen getting fish in the rivers, and now they cannot sell the fish. They don't have income now, you see. So it's only the fishing issue, but it now become a social issue, a big social issue in Thailand. So all that thing, if we think it's minor, if we don't address that, someday it becomes something like the social argument for the things. And it had a lot of consequences. Okay. Policy incoherent to support a sustainable fishery. Okay. So we talk with I talked with Professor Sophie during the coffee break. He mentioned in his presentation that not during his presentation, but we talked. So he said that WTO and UCLOS had sometimes conflicts in terms of identifying the sort of fishing, okay, between the deep-put and undeput areas. Okay, that is the United Nations Convention or International Convention. Still something conflict. So it will be not surprised within the country you had this conflict between the different law and policy. The policy to develop the rice in Vietnam. So we had all the the law for agriculture and fishery in Vietnam, for example. But all the investment is going to for the rice, and if you develop rice, you need to have a wetland. You need to convert the wetland or that fishing habitat into the rice field. That is all conflicting as the interest between the different sector. You want to develop hydropower, but also you damage on the fishing, make it on the blocking on the fish migration. It's on the conflicting between the different policy. So what I argue here is that this is policy incoherent between the country, within the country. Okay, so all four member countries had a good and very appropriate official policy for capture fishery, including sustain them, maximize economic benefit, and protect and restore the environment upon which they depend. For example, every country had a policy for sustainable fishery, had a legal framework for fishery law, on a degree, and a strategic framework or the national guidelines. All the country in the Mekong, they join all of it, convention on biodiversity, have everything in place. Okay, but that is on the paper only. Okay, so we had to look into the main issue, maybe not only in the Mekong, but as a member, as a country in Asia. It's not policy for inland capture fishery, but for priority investment, it disconnects with policy in practice. Okay, it's for example in Thailand, so you under the law enforcement. Okay, so you see that they do pretty well for the marines, but they're not really stopping on illegal fishing in the inland. The same for Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. We had on the closing season, Maasai, Kayapkia, but everything still happen. So everything is a law, but it's in, no one enforced. So that is the problem for all the developing country where they had to prioritize their limited state budgets for activity. Okay, so they will try to invest something that they can have a return as soon as possible. So the main issue is not the policy. The main issue is the implementation. Okay, so the key needs to reconnect the policy and practice, so they can deliver that cross multiple policy areas. So at MRC, we try to support the member country for all the fishery management. So we cannot ask. Here is the facts. So we try to come up with some local initiative, can support them to make that all apply enforcement on a policy implementation on the ground possible. That is one of the things that we're talking about, the core management. So when the government cannot handle things, so we need to zoom in with the local initiative, with the core management. Okay. Okay. Another thing we talk to many the member states is the common policy assumption is that the fishery cannot sustain or improve. It's not correct. It can improve very quickly, especially for fishery. It is very easy to prove very well for inland, also for marines. If you can protect the habitat, the fishery can come back on 2 or 3 years. It takes shorter time if compared to the forest. So the evidence proves that the capture of fishery can be sustained or even improved, at least at a local scale. Okay. The two most promising short-term measures is the core management. So lead to the better management of fishing, improve the stock, and it's more sustainable at catch. The people still question how we do that. We just had the next slide, so I explain. And then small scale for local ecosystem restoration and undertakes in partnership with the local community offer. So in Asia, so we don't like the term community-based. The community-based means community decide anything. Okay, so the core management is more natural and it recognized in the legal framework. It means the community and government working together to manage the resources. So by that way, the government, they don't lose the control of the resources. So the core management is a more popular term in terms of the legal terminology for the natural resources at least in Asia. Okay, so how we come up with the solution? Okay, the first things, and as I mentioned in the barriers, so we're helping member country to improve the information, and this is to better integrate into policy planning and investment. So okay, so if you were an investor, you want to go to invest in one of the country, what is the information you look at? You will go into the statistic office to look into the GDP thing, on the sector things from the country. And when the government they want to invest something, they will look into the statistic system to see what is it, how it return. So we work with the member country to have some, to have them to improve the information in the statistic system, that where the investment decision come from. So we have them to build the capacity, have the facilitate sharing experience to business country. So we see here this on of DWeb Thailand, DWeb Laos. We send them down to the field and provide the training for them how to do the proper statistics. Okay, so we convene the government by, if we look into the boundary between province, that could be difficult. But if we look into the habitat scale, that for the statistics, that could give you two advantage of doing statistics. So if we go into the by the habitat, you still be able to break down into the province border after. But if we go down into the habitat style for the statistic, so it's easy to do statistics, the first thing. The second, you will see what's wrong with your fishery, where the most fishery decline in your system. So we see here that on the blue one is that the fishery decline in the main river system. On the green one is from the right field. And the gray one is from the water body. And the yellow one is from the brackish estuary. So by these things, it's still able to break down into the provincial statistic, but also give you some idea of where the problem comes from, and make it easier for the statistic analysis. Okay, and the own member country had acknowledged that the capture fishery yields are declining. Okay, they recognize we need to do something with statistics, but it's that now is dealing with the national system. So that is not easy. So because it is acknowledged from the government, but the policy gap, everything cannot change overnight. So we have member country to this state acknowledge there's something wrong with the system, come up with a new methodology for them, but now it go back to the national to decide. That thing is over the responsibility of MRC, so that's why we further to discuss with FAO to make it happen within each country, because each country had the responsibility to report for the fishing to FAO. So FAO now is a better position than MRC to do further to support the country within the country boundary. Okay? Okay. The second solution. So people talking about the hydropower. Okay, so I think MRC, and if you know, and many conservation organizations, so all the movement in the world, so we try to stopping the hydropower for last 50 years, 30 years. So do you have any case that says they can stop the government from building the dam? No, no way. not able to stop anyone, any country to build a dam. Okay, so taking that the lesson, so we have the member countries to do the nexus analysis. Okay, so we analyze on the interaction between the sector and the owner of services. Okay, so make sure that the country had that information to make the good decision for synergy. Okay, only one thing. I have needed only 2 or 3 more minutes. Okay, so you see the hydropower. Okay, and the main river fishery. Okay, so hydropower, the relationship, hydropower will provide a lot of power, but don't provide any the value for fishery. Okay, the relationship is a minus, a 0. This one is a baseline. Okay, you see the fishery had provide a lot of the value for fishery. Okay, but it don't provide any energy. Okay, so we're going to talk to the Lao government that. Okay, so we accept now the hydropower as a baseline. So you see produce the same as a scheme and produce the hydropower, but you should invest more in the main river fishery, because if we restore the local habitat, you can increase the value of the fishery, but do not make any impact to the fishery. Okay, so now do invest more in fishery. You had the synergy on the hydropower and energy, but if you build more hydropower, it will make the damage to the fishery. Take into that consideration. That our advice, our analysis for the next year, so to convince the government that so do something. Okay, so you had all the information now ready. Okay, so the third solution is that we're talking about the Quan management. Okay, so we had a ZEP project. So people always ask the local community to protect the environment. Okay, but I said, okay, I protect the fishery, but what I eat? So we come up with a project to implement on the Quan management, improve the Chamari fishery solution. But the key thing here, we try to bring in the economic incentive. So a lot of the problem with the project, after the project finished, everything finished. So we try to bring in the economic incentive by investing in the value chain of the fishery to support the livelihood, so the people can feel incentive for protecting the fishery. And we bring in all of the outcome into the cross sector, and as I just mentioned about the nexus, a cross sector analysis, and to minimize cross sector conflict and minimize the conflict for a priority one area over other areas or other sector because it don't have information. So we bring all that things, go into cross sector between the fishery and agriculture and the hydropower, so we can discuss to find the synergy solution for all. Okay, last thing. Because we're talking about the Chamari yesterday. Okay, so in the inland fishery, so Chamari often misunderstanding. Okay, so within international border. So in fishery, we don't think that is correct. So it doesn't need to be the border between country. Okay, so Chamari as our own area within the river basins that are connected through the sand drain system. Okay, so for example, so we own the critical fish habitat here. Not need to be between the border, but we identify the critical Chamari biodiversity hotspots, because fish from this area can go to other areas. Okay, so we argue that the Chamari doesn't mean that need to be the border. So we can, because we can do something within the country, and the East countries they had the law for the fishing, and if we do something in the border, it maybe make it difficult for the cooperation between country, because the activity A could be illegal in the country be. So it is better our argument that you use your law to protect the critical fish habitat in your country at much as you can. So if we protect this, it's good. So all the fishery from here can all connect to all the Mekong. So also is that Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. So protect your fishery by using your law, and this will be good for the Mekong and MRC. We will do everything to connect all things together. Okay. Okay, it's the last slide. So. So you see that you know that climate change has a major impact to the fishery, okay? But in the Mekong, we see that the hydropower is a much more impact to the fishery. It's climate change, it only is a marginal, minor impact compared to other development activity. Okay, it's a major impact, but compared to other things. So so we argue that if on the continue to develop the development activity with the dam on the fishery in the Mekong will collapse. Okay, so people eating fish now have to eat beef, eat chicken, pork, so all that things. It create a lot of emission. Okay, okay. So by investing in the capture fishery, the capture fishery it is zero emission. Okay, so on place the normal fishing boat. So on capture fishery, we consider that zero emission. So if we can protect on the fishery, keep a lead as a status quo, don't decline anymore. So we on protect on emission into atmosphere, and you can claim that avoided admission into the carbon credits, and then could be certified for the asset to climate change mitigation financing, things like that. So we see that climate change could be one of the opportunities for funding to support the fishery in the region. Right? I think that's the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank